Hey there, I just wanted to be able to check in with all of you and kind of just give a quick update for this upcoming week. In terms of last week, you all did really well. I really appreciated a lot of the discussion posts that you all did. I like how you incorporated some of the things you learned from the history and background of the city of Corinth in terms of the Isthmian games, some of the cultic practices from some of the temple things, and how that influenced a lot of Paul's language and would have been really familiar to them. One of the things that I hope you're getting from this is realizing that the biblical texts that we have were written in a real time in a real place. Paul was a first century Jewish man that became a Christian, and they had places like for us like New York or Las Vegas, and if we were writing a letter, a lot of those would be kind of just second nature for us. And the biblical writers, they assume that you know the places they're talking about and some of the important things that are going on. So for us, crossing that bridge, we were talking about Duval and Hayes, crossing that bridge. A big part of that is recognizing some things that were culturally important to them, things that would have been very familiar, and that allows us to better understand the text. Now, can you do that without obviously taking some of these journeys into the history and culture? Absolutely. And some people go really far into it, and you can spend a whole lifetime studying those things. But they are helpful in us kind of getting a better understanding of the Word of God. And I'm hoping that you're getting to see this a little bit in terms of understanding some of Paul's language and things like that. So that's kind of last week. I really wanted to focus in on the history of the city, and just to give you a context, you're posted really well on that. The timeline that you guys did, I'm going to grade those tonight, and I had a chance to look at a few of them and get some feedback from some of you. And I know all of the passages that were listed there, not all of them were super clear of how it applied to First and Second Corinthians, but with a little digging, they did. So just a couple that really kind of threw some people off were the Thessalonians passage and the Romans passage. So Romans passage in Romans 16, he mentions Erastus, the city treasurer, which is a person that was in Corinth at the time. So one of the things that we recognize is that Paul actually probably wrote the letter of Romans while in Corinth. And then the second one was in First Thessalonians, I believe it's chapter 3, 1 through 6, where Paul is writing and talks about Timothy returning to him. So Thessalonians also was likely written in Corinth because of the Acts passages talking about him being in Macedonia and Achaia, which were kind of two states that we would describe, and those cities of Corinth were in Achaia, and Macedonia was up north, which is where Thessalonica was. So I know those are a little bit confusing. I'm not going to mark you off for those if you had a hard time with that, but I just wanted to kind of check in. So this week, don't forget, you've got 2 quizzes. You have also the practice quiz, the regular quiz. You have another discussion post on the wisdom of God. I'm looking forward to reading some of those because that's some of what my main focus is on in my doctoral program. And then the last part of that is going to be outline that you guys will all do. The outline is really important because I think those will be really helpful to you in understanding the flow of 1 Corinthians, and also as a resource to you in the future as you preach and teach and different things like that. I love outlines. Do what works for you. Obviously follow the instructions, go 3 levels deep. But I'm not going to be a stickler in terms of how you divide certain things. It needs to make sense to you. Obviously, I'm going to make sure that you worked hard on it. But if your designations don't completely match mine and how I would do that, I understand you probably think a little bit differently. Just like chapter headings and things like that, those are all added after the fact of the biblical text being written. Those weren't there. Verse things, those were all opinions and judgments, kind of like headings and stuff when you read a normal Bible today in different translations. So part of that is judgment call, so I respect that, but I want this to be a tool for you. Don't just breeze through this. Don't just get it done. Really do this as with the mindset of, hey, I'm going to hold on to this. So I'm looking forward to grading stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and I'm enjoying spending time with all of you. Take care.